Okay, welcome to Fahrenheit Performance Podcast episode number 10. We have today Claire Jedrek, who is our presenter, fitness enthusiast and motorsport expert, also a mother of two. Tell us a bit about you, Claire. Just introduce yourself a little bit and we'll get started.
So I think a lot of people think I'm Singaporean because I've just been around forever on the scene doing stuff. But I'm actually British born.
I've seen you in the National Championship Singapore jersey though.
Yeah, correct. I know. I'm a PR. I'm a PR, and I guess that still gets you. I guess in that jersey, that's from mountain biking, right? And but I was born in the UK. Moved to Singapore when I was 12. Mom's Singaporean, dad's English Polish, hence the Polish surname.
Oh, okay.
Married, but didn't take on the surname of my husband because he said I sound like a boring accountant. He said Claire Tan doesn't sound very interesting. So I was like, great, sweet. I'd probably say that sports per se is really the backbone of just who I am. Something I've always fallen back on.
Yep.
And I've never really been obsessed with anything in particular when it comes to sport. Yep. I'm just a competitive person that chooses to try out a sport, and I think if I can succeed in it, then I will go ahead and do it.
So if you try a sport and you like it, you'll just keep going until you just run this course, and then you try another sport and you like it.
Correct, yeah. And I just think that really is my life journey, and I think that's actually my passion. And I think really I've realized over the years, looking over it now, that I'm one of those person that is of breadth of topic rather than depth. And I've gotten depth from breadth because I've transferred skill sets across from different sport. Of course, now I am the aging athlete, as I call it. I think you would understand that.
We had an episode about the aging athlete. Yes.
I am. I feel like that's my new branding. I have different brandings. I am the aging athlete.
So you're getting old people problems now.
Which are, so now I'm picking sports where I'm trying to... It's hard to say, preserve in my own head, my own idea of what preservation is like for my body. And therefore, you'll see me, I guess, transitioning into different sports as I go along.
And right now it's endurance sports, I guess.
Yeah, it's endurance sports. Because I think that's what I feel more comfortable at right now. And a different kind of challenge.
So last week, I had Cheryl Tay on, and I trawled her Instagram, and I found her old Instagram posts. So I did the same with you today. You got 34,000 followers, 6,500 posts, right? And I scrolled back and I thought, I look back and there's kids, bikes, kids, swimming, kids, and then it's like motorsports, and then it's Huey, and then it's motorsports, and then it's like gym.
Yeah, it was massive gym rack.
And I finally got to the bottom, and guess what I found?
What's my first?
A picture of your abs.
Was that my first?
I think so. It's 2012.
That would have been just...
And what I found out is that you were in Perth. And I am from Perth.
Oh.
And so I thought, wow, that's really cool. But Claire used to live in Perth.
I put smash fit. Yes, I was a massive gym rat. It's so funny.
And then and it's got me thinking, because that's your second. This is your second post.
Hair. I got my hair done.
Yeah, hair done, right? And then using the old filters.
Thank you for printing these out. I love it.
But what it gives for the normal people like us is that you only got 11 likes on that post. So
both of them.
Us mortals, we got hope, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, yeah. That's when Instagram got me.
So
and
now
I was linked to Instagram too.
If you post a picture of your flip flop, you'd get 400 likes nowadays, and then it's 11. So tell us a little bit. Why were you in Perth? What and how did you end up back in Singapore?
So I went there for love.
Okay.
I was madly in love with somebody, and I made a decision to go over. I think I've always been that kind of person.
Not a Australian, not a Singaporean.
Yeah, he was actually mixed, and he was a pilot, and then he decided that wasn't for him.
Okay.
And then he went back, and I decided, okay, let's go there. Let's try out.
Yep.
Thought settle down, yada yada. Then he broke up with me very suddenly.
Oof. And then you're suddenly in a foreign country with...
well, yeah. Do I stay? Do I be a strong woman? I had all these ideologies. And then, in short, basically, I think I made a decision to come back. But I wasn't... Yeah, I was in between. And then I'd actually met you in that period of time visiting Singapore.
Okay.
And then I I did, yeah.
So did you come back thinking this is what, like, the Claire today of 2024? Was that always your dream? And did you come back to Singapore thinking that's what you wanted to pursue, or did you, and thinking that if you stayed in Australia, this is going to be a sort of a bland life for the rest of your life, or what was the thought process? Or you just wanted to come back to a safe place?
I think, to be honest, at that period of time, you know, because I was 30 years old, and you know, I wasn't really a spring chicken. You know, I think you have all these ideologies at 30. I now have sold everything. I might have to potentially sell everything again. I now don't have a partner. I don't have anywhere to live.
Starting over.
I'm starting over. I actually kind of gave up my career, which I already started in hosting, and I was doing quite well actually at that time. 2009 to 12, started escalating. I actually did. I was working for Red Bull TV and some of the Red Bull projects for extreme sports. And he'd actually asked me to give it up, and I think it was just to more like assimilate life, go over there and be part of that. But there was a part of me, my parents have always been very supportive of what I've done. They didn't really want me to go to Australia over there, kind of felt like it was on a whim. But they also knew I was always a bit of that wild child. If I wanted to go to Europe for 2 months, I'd do it. If I wanted to buy a motorbike, as long as I paid for it, there's no stopping Claire. Like a bit of a hurricane. Or I've been told since a child, a bull in a Chinese shop. I love that term. It stuck with me. I think somebody told me that when I was 7 or 8. And so I just did things, and I always thought to myself that I can always make myself happy wherever I am. But looking back now, I mean, there were a lot of red flags of things that I wasn't happy at. But I think that's a different type of endurance of like sticking it out. You know, I've definitely come from a generation where you stick it out and you try and find and be happy. But I think I look back now and it was for the better. There's no way. I mean, I love Perth. I'm an outdoor person. And
it's okay, you can say you don't like it.
I love Perth. A lot of people were asking me, do we swear? Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. They were like, what the fuck are you doing here in Perth? Singaporeans. Because it sticks, right? But my partner was awesome. I mean, I always thought he was a great guy. I mean, it was a bad fallout. We're friends now. But I always say it was like a bright wick that just went out fast, like a sparkler. But he was an outdoor person. So I was surfing, I was bodyboarding, I was camping.
All the stuff you can't do in Singapore.
A catamaran. I was swimming with dolphins. I mean, for me,
really good snorkeling and diving over there
amazing,
as well.
Amazing. So, but I mean, I came back and I think it changed my perception, and I'm actually quite grateful for that happening because I feel like who I am today, it was a process that I would have never happened if I didn't go through that amount of pain.
So if you didn't go there, you'd probably regret not going there, and if you didn't come back, you probably would have regretted not coming back as well. So it's a journey that you had to take.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's always been no regrets. Just do something, because I've always had a fear that I would regret not doing it. So for me, even if it didn't go through, at least I know I did it and I tried. And I guess it's just part of my journey, and it was a big mindset change for me, and I think that was probably the best thing. I mean, my dad, even though I did listen to my parents quite a lot, my dad said something was actually very useful. He was like, just do nothing for 2 months. I had money saved up. And that's probably the best advice. He's like, just chill out. You know, I come from, I guess, parentage where I had Asian mother, where there is no chill. Hashtag no chill.
You got to do something all the time.
Since young, she's like, if I finish my exams, she's like, get a job. From the age of 15, I've been working. 16, waitering. I used to work at Marriott actually for like a year.
Nice.
I was doing all sorts of. I was working. And she's always like, you're a woman. You need your own money. You know, that was the kind of family that we came from, because she was on her own.
It's great.
She
good
married.
Work ethic as well.
It's great, but it's also not great, because now I've spent the last 3 years of my life trying to undo some bits of it and learn how to just be okay doing nothing. I'm going to turn up. I'm looking at my abs. What are you? Memories, sweet memories.
12 years ago or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, trying to undo some of that and learning to really relax and do nothing. I think that's actually quite hard, especially in today's society, especially as a female.
In Singapore, it's like when I go back to Perth, sometimes it's like 8 o'clock at night and I run out of things to do. and it's great. Like you don't feel like it's hustle and bustle. Here, sometimes I get home at 10 o'clock at night and I'm still got 100 things in my mind, right?
Yeah.
So you're a mother of two, you're a race car driver, you're an MC, a triathlete, you ride mountain bikes. What started all of these sort of extreme endurance, not mother, it's not extreme, but race car driver
and endurance sport.
Yeah.
You of all people would know.
Yeah.
Parenting is extreme, and it's for the next 40 years of your life.
Yeah. Did you start as a mountain biker, for example, or what was your journey through all these?
Well, to be honest, I mean, probably I started off, the very basic was just running.
Mm-hmm.
I can still remember my first memory at 6 years old.
Oof, okay.
And that's probably one of the very few earliest memories at school in UK.
Yep.
And I still remember wanting to win.
Like cross country? Was it like cross
No,
country?
it wasn't.
Or like
no,
track?
I was 6 years old. I mean, it was like, they had the sack race. Like, it was like, 40 meters down a field. But I remember, and you can see in photos, I wanted to win.
You got that red mist in your eyes. You're on it.
Yeah. And I think I remember I was always, I mean, our competitions, it was always that. Even swimming, I remember everybody takes swimming lessons there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I always wanted to finish first. I was probably annoying to a lot of people.
Yep.
But like, I always wanted to finish my swimming tests, because then you have 200 meters, 400 meters,
Yep.
800 meters tests, and you get a badge.
Yep.
I just wanted to collect them all.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of child. I was 3 children in one.
Yeah, you're very process driven and very goal oriented. I guess.
Which is weird as well, because my parents do not play sport.
Mm-hmm.
They never have. They didn't watch. My dad watched some football. I remember a little bit of F1, but the news was always on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do find that kind of interesting. Anyway, and then I moved to Singapore.
Yep.
And then I was always running at school.
So you continued running?
Continued running.
Yep.
I actually joined, so I did 4 years when I came to Singapore at Cedar Girls School. And that's because I found out it was a running school, and they were doing very good in the nationals.
Oh, nice.
So I got into their team, did the nationals.
Yep.
It was great, broke records for relay.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
Yep.
But there was also a side of me which was... It's very hard. I always had a very unfiltered side, which is very difficult for the team. I'm not a very good team player.
Okay.
I've always played
Belinda's
sport.
like that as well.
Your wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's very much a tennis is a solo sport. Pilates is very solo. It's
interesting. I've tried to play team sport, and it was difficult for me. So I did that, and then I got into, there's a few neighborhood boys who were aggressive inline skating.
Yep.
So the skates, they were jumping curbs, grinding.
Yep.
And I've always
so like half pipe, quarter pipe, and rails, all that sort of stuff.
all of that.
So like the stuff that's behind Somerset MRT station.
Correct.
Yep.
So all the staircases and stuff back in the day, you could go and do, and I found a little community. I felt like.
Yep.
At skate parks.
Mm-hmm.
And for about 10 years, from 14 to 24.
Oh wow.
I did that. And probably destroyed a lot of different things.
Yeah.
That's why I feel the aching now, like, because of
Yep.
high impact. But I did that, and I felt like I found a community there. Also, there was no female competitions. You had to join the boys' competition. So I think that also built me up to not have the anxiety of just joining. I think also because I knew I would not win first place. But maybe I did enjoy being the only girl or this and that, I can't remember what the process is in my head.
Yep.
But yes, I did aggressive inline, and then in Polytechnic, I did some cheerleading and stuff like that, and I thought, let's try it. But I thought because it would be extreme, doing the flips and stuff.
But were you the flipper, not the...
Yeah,
were you
I
the
was
thrower,
doing
not the flipping?
No, I was doing some flipping.
Okay.
Because I did some gymnastics in school, so I was into that. But then I didn't really like it. I felt like they weren't structured enough. Sorry. But, and then I played floorball.
Okay.
Because it's all out. And I struggled because...
Team sport.
Yeah, and it's a bit... I feel like it's very different as well. And I think the mentality of sport in Singapore and how people are. And it was a bit weird. So, I mean, I don't know. Some of the girls were quite religious. There was a lot of Christian things going on. I'm not religious. I'm very respectful.
Yep.
People talk to me about the Bible, and we went overseas actually.
It's just floorball though.
I know, it was very convoluted, but I also struggled on the side because I felt like when we were down on points or towards the end that people weren't pushing hard enough. So I have really high standards. Like if they
so people would give up too easily.
So I felt like maybe they weren't. But I, as an adult, I realised everyone has different levels.
Yeah, of course.
Of what give up is.
Yep.
And my give up is really until I'm dead and dying. So I feel like they weren't dead and dying. So we went overseas, did that as well. Played like in national floorball games. So I did that for about 2 years. And then I was like, Yeah, I struggled with the team.
Just didn't
It's
quite
too
do
many
it
girls.
for you.
It was just too many girls in a room,
Yeah.
and that's always been my issue.
Mm-hmm.
Too many personalities, and I was maybe a bit aloof in that way. And then I went back to running
Yep.
in poly. And but then it was also that's the start of my partying years, right?
Yeah,
18 to 21.
So yeah, exactly.
You know, and I was always naughty, so cigarettes and smoking and yada yada.
And then it undoes all the good work of your endurance.
Yeah, but I was always still doing stuff because you can do that, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can have a cigarette and still run.
And you can stay out until 6 in the morning and then run late, right?
And then in 2000 so when I moved to Perth, I got into doing. I was really into the gym. I was smashing gym.
Well, your abs.
2 hours a day. I think also because I didn't have friends.
Yeah.
It was very difficult for me, so I spent a lot of time there. And then I started doing these like city to surf runs.
Yeah, I did
started
that.
joining those.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really hooked up into like numbers and the data,
Yeah.
and that started the journey. When I moved back to Singapore, I joined Yui bought me my first mountain bike. And he was like, "Oh, I used to mountain bike. Let's go out on the trails."
Yeah, cool.
It was a very heavy.
Like old aluminium.
Probably
yeah.
it would have been like a 9-10 kilo bike.
Nice.
You know, it was heavy.
Goes
but,
fast downhill.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I started off on that a bit and did some city stuff. And then 2014, I think, or it could have been 15, I did my first like duathlon. It was called the KM Duathlon, but it was for charity. And I did the cycling leg.
Yep.
Sorry, I did the running, sorry. Cheryl Tay was in it as well.
Yep.
Me, Kelly Latimer, and Cheryl Tay.
Nice.
Kelly borrowed a bike. Cheryl ran. I ran the second. I was the second runner. And that was like ECP TMCR or something like that.
Which is 10 years ago. So you've known her. You guys go back a long way.
Yeah, actually, Cheryl knows Yui longer than me, my husband.
Wow.
She got all the way since from 2009. She's
Okay.
been around. Yeah, it's been around a long time. And then I started with the Metasport series, and actually that's really probably back then there used to be a triathlon association competition.
Yep.
And I remember getting
The OSIM as well back then.
I think so, and I joined it, and Yui's always going, "You don't train hard enough," because I would train, but it's not really as a social.
Yeah.
And then I got second in that.
Nice.
For my category, which was a big surprise. I think I was in the 30 to 35 category. So I was like, oh, maybe
There's something in this.
Maybe there's something in this. You know what I mean? Because I didn't train that hard. You know. So then I think that's when it really started. And I kept joining year after year. And I probably only got a lot more serious about 4 years ago.
Are you still doing Metasprint triathlons?
Oh yeah, I've been doing it every year.
Yeah,
and in fact,
it's coming up soon, right? Duathlon is coming up in a few weeks.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
in 1 week. And then that was like my beginning of the year thing. I love goals as a person. So for me, having competition, that's always been great for me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the training process.
So you had a time where you were a race car driver. Did you meet Huey because you were a race car driver and he was a race car driver, or did you meet him and then you became a race car driver because you were in that sort of community?
I was racing cars because of him.
Okay.
He offered me a job when I got to know him, and I've come back to Singapore to commentate for the national championship, which he was the organizer. So that changes hands.
Because you were already an MC from the time before, so
Correct.
you already...
And I'd already dipped my finger in accidentally to the F1 by doing some of the shows, and that was through Red Bull. But I hadn't taken, I was then a fan of F1. I became a fan because of Red Bull, because in 2007 they sent me away to Brazil, and I did some of this stuff, and that's how usually these things happen.
Yep.
You know, because I didn't grow up with motorsport. I mean, the only thing I remember from like the 90s was Nigel Mansell, and I always remember him because he had like
a moustache,
a big broomstick moustache, and
and he's British as well.
That's why I remember him.
Yeah.
So he offered me a job, and he said, "Would you like to host, commentate? But of course, then if you want to walk, you need to be able to talk."
Yeah.
So I started go-karting.
Yep.
And he said, I was basically just doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laps and trying to perfect and get my time. And then he said, well, then you have to join leagues. And then I just joined leagues, and I started winning some of the leagues.
Yep.
And then, of course, it was a naive idea of like, perhaps I can be a race driver.
Yeah.
And you said, look, I know how to put a deck together. Let's try at the end of his season, which would have been 2013, the end of 2013. And in about 2 months from November to December, I put together something, and because I was already working in the media, I surprisingly found more sponsors than I thought. So my idea was to join my first race in March, and I managed to get a whole year sponsorship.
Oh, nice. What sort of cars were you driving?
This was touring production cars.
Yeah.
So all your Hondas.
So front wheel drives.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Front wheel drives. And yeah, so I joined the Malaysian Championships and the national series over there because of Singapore.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything. And then Thailand as well. So I mean, it's been, it's that somehow went from 1 year to like almost 5 years. So it was crazy. And then it came to a point, COVID.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, I was 36 by then.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I want kids.
So you hadn't had any kids yet?
No.
Okay.
So, because I had Ollie 2018.
Okay, so
this is just before the COVID hit. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I need to do it now. I'm 36. And I think I'd calculated based on like, I don't want to be a 40-year-old mother.
Yeah. Well, you will be a 40-year-old mother one day, right?
One day, right? Yeah, I know. But I just...
You don't want to be pregnant at 40.
It bothered me. And you had gone. So we got married in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, anytime. He was like, just pull the button anytime.
Yeah.
You can have kids. And I waited. And I waited. Because it's the fear of being a mom. I think you find new ego. Yeah. That kind of, well, especially for me, that kind of comes up against who I think I am and who I think I will become. Yeah. Or what people see of me. Mm-hmm. So that was a whole different battle of ego of, So
that slowed down your racing, your race car.
Well, driving. 2000. I came back in 3 months, so I went on a massive training program. The first year I didn't do it right. After I had Ollie and I had an easy birth, I got back into mountain biking because I was quite big into mountain biking back then. And I had a race in Lake Taupo at the end of 2008. My son was born, and my son was born in January. Yeah. I trained after the first 3 months.
So April.
Yeah, and I trained all the way to the end of the year, November, December. Yeah. And I think my body was really battered. Yeah. I had all sorts of back issues. Yeah. I just didn't understand the oxytocin.
Well, just need to heal from the pregnancy and everything.
Correct,
first,
yeah.
properly.
And my body wasn't reacting, and I went so hardcore training. I was doing like 100-kilometer cycles to Ubin and back, and then maybe do a trail inside there. But it's a lot of downhill. It's a lot of like
a lot of vibration on the body and a lot of
I was wrecked.
Yeah.
And then it was funny enough. Actually, on the race day, in that period of time, I packed a bunch of like tampons and all my things. I was like supposed to get my period in that time, and then I forgot. I didn't come. Yeah. And then I kept getting acid reflux, and that's actually how I found out I was pregnant the first time.
Yeah.
And of course,
you didn't add up.
We didn't suspect. I mean, it was one of those one-time moments. Like, one-time moments. I had sex one time, and I was like, I won't get pregnant. I just had a kid like 9 months ago, and then it happened. So I had all this acid reflux, and you was like, drink some concrete. Yeah. He was like, you're fine. He was like, take some Gaviscon. You'll be fine, Claire. And then I raced for like almost 6 hours.
Wow.
In mountain biking off-road. It was a hard race.
Yeah.
And I somehow battled, and I just felt incredibly fucking tired.
Yeah.
And I just didn't understand why I was so tired. Which is kind of crazy. Because actually, mentally now, if I'd known, I probably would have just...
Yeah, backed off.
Or gone through the race and been like, wow, I'm because I'm pregnant. Anyway, I went back home and found out I was already 2 weeks pregnant. 2 to 3 weeks pregnant, which explained me feeling incredibly tired. Because
your body already knew.
Yeah. So I got the job, did all the racing, and then 2000, I think, when did COVID happen?
March 2020.
2020, but it was the end of 2019. So then I got pregnant, but I'd already had one comeback race in Thailand. So I'd gone back, and when I got pregnant with Charlie, I was like, okay, well, I only managed to do 2 races, and very sadly, I'd actually got offered a job with a car manufacturer, sponsored drive for the year. Oh, wow. And that's what you work up to, especially as somebody who comes so late into racing. I only got into it when I was 30. And I'd done pretty well in the national championship for Malaysia and all that. So I was devastated.
That's as stable as you're going to get, right? A sponsored drive.
I mean, that's as far I was going to get in terms of semi-professional. That's, for me to get a sponsored drive by a big manufacturer, that's more than anything. Yeah. So I was devastated. I mean, I think I didn't tell you for 2 weeks. And I thought to myself, maybe I can do the first race, which would have been in the 3-month period, and then I'd have to drop the bomb on the team and go like, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
But then, of course, Anyway, I spoke to the doctor, and he was like, well, you could, but is it responsible? Not really. So, and that happened, and then COVID hit.
And then that's it.
And then I was
no racing for 2 years or so, right?
No, there's no racing for 2 years. Yeah. So then, racing was incredibly difficult in Singapore. Sponsorship.
Yeah. So your sponsors were Singaporean sponsors, or were they Malaysian or Thailand?
Singapore sponsors. Okay. Singapore sponsors, and it was really good because being in the media and having kids, I actually had a lot of female brands and mother brands come aboard, which was amazing. And they were really happy to sponsor me. Made money for my races and stuff, and I guess it was a great story. And
you're the first F1, your first race car driver, Singaporean.
First female, I was the only female race driver in Singapore that took it beyond. And so I think COVID hit, and then I was like, do I want to spend that much time in a garage again?
Yeah.
Because even though my husband was racing, I was actually away twice as much as he was, especially when I was with Charlie.
Yeah.
Because not only do I go away for his racing, I was also a TV presenter for racing series, and I'd done that for 3 years.
So you're traveling the circuit, sort of.
Correct, and I was traveling internationally throughout Southeast Asia, to Korea, to here, and all over Asia. So I was away way more, and the first pregnancy I was until 7 months. I was literally running up and down pit lane
with a big belly,
with a big shirt covered. I lucky it wasn't too huge.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's exercise. I was still counting calories when I was pregnant. Nice. I was like, need to keep the weight off, And running up and up staircases back to pit box. Yeah. Second one, Yui was like, I think maybe, what do you just take another
Take it easy a bit more.
Yeah, stop at 6 months, Claire. Yeah, so, and then just made a decision to stop after that. I was like, I think it's just a shift of where I want to put my time.
A lot of race car drivers actually ride bikes, right? A lot of them ride bikes. And there's all sorts of crossovers. McLaren sponsors bikes, and there's different wind tunnels and stuff. What did you take from race car driving into cycling and vice versa? Race car driving is very much an endurance sport, even though people don't think it is. But things like tactics and things like that, how do they translate? Does anything translate across?
Well, I mean, depending on what kind of race driving, for Yui, he did a lot of sprint races, and he's done a couple of endurance ones as well. For my races, it was a mix between sprint races and endurance. So I would have
sprint is in a short,
half an hour, but it's all flat out. Okay. So strategy is just win. Yep. And sprint races, then depending if you had 1 or 2 drivers, usually I kept it. I didn't have a second driver, so I would do the full 1 hour race. Of course, then we had races that were sometimes 3 hours, and then I got Yui along, because then, just higher chance of winning, right? To get somebody who's even better. But you're stuck in a car that's 40 degrees, it's hot, you don't have AC, it's stripped out. I think it's what people don't realize.
And you got to focus 100% of the time.
You're not just sitting there. My heart rate is so high actually because of the heat. And then just your nutrition, your water, which was something I struggled with massively. I had massive migraines.
After every race?
Yeah, after my first few races.
Because you sweat it all out?
One was I wasn't hydrating properly, because I think because I was trying not to drink too much water. Our bladders are different for guys and girls.
Yep.
And for some boys last minute going to need the toilet, they could actually just run off somewhere near the circuit. Yeah. It's difficult. I'm wearing fireproof, and then if you've got your suit on top, and then you've got your balaclava, and then it's hot. You lose so much water, and you're just soaked. So it's pretty serious. And can you imagine going into an Ironman? You didn't have any hydration. Yeah. And actually, I didn't put any for my first. I didn't understand. So I didn't realize that I had to learn how to hydrate, exactly what you do in a triathlon. Yeah. 3 days before start, really getting your salts in, and making sure your body's really pre-prepped.
You're almost overloaded on some of the things. Correct, because you're going to drain them out.
Correct. And that's why I loved mountain biking. Not only was it, yes, I've always been cheap thrills.
Yeah, interesting.
And the cheap thrills, and never just...
Extreme sports.
Yeah, extreme sports. Mountain biking, the hand-eye coordination and the reaction time. I'm not saying road biking's not like that, but it is different. Mountain biking really...
You go through a rock garden, you can't just, you can't chat to your friend, you got to...
Correct. You have to have a certain skill set. You have to have, I think, you definitely have to have endurance because your heart spikes so differently in mountain biking. And at the same time, even though you have to be strong, you have to be incredibly relaxed.
Yeah.
And when you're tired, like it really is man over matter. And just the skill sets to be able to make the judgments, and you're doing calculations. Race driving, you're doing thousands of calculations in a minute.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're on a race circuit, just like mountain biking, or even like, I mean, if you're crit racing, whatever it is. I mean, not only are you thinking about what's around you, you're thinking about what's the next turn coming up, what gear are you changing, then how much pressure you got to brake, and then let off, and then get back on it again. And then you've got to watch out for the flags around you. Then you look out for everybody around you.
Yeah, you got to know what everyone else is doing.
So much processing power is
Well,
needed.
if you climb Mount Faber with a bunch of pals, and then would you find that you descend way better because you know the lines and you can brake differently down the hills just because of your racing experience?
Probably. I think I definitely... So probably the one thing that I always think I have an advantage, especially in like when it comes to duathlons and stuff like this, or even just with the bike section, it tends to be my stronger section.
Yep.
Where I ran out of talent for the other two, is that I brake late. I brake a lot later.
Okay.
Much to the chagrin of the officials.
Do you corner faster as well? Do you lean into the bike?
I try as much as I can. I definitely, I mean, like for me, I make sure, especially now, I drop gears. I think a lot of people don't drop gears for me going to the corners. And then when they come out the corners, they're like, they're incredibly strong.
The wrong gears.
You're burning. Wrong gears. People were braking 50 meters before U-turns, and I'm like, I mean, that's actually quite dangerous for me. Or just being behind.
Running into the back of somebody.
You know what I mean? So for me, but I also find that really thrilling. I love the darting in and out. So doing that and braking late, going to the corners. I definitely even in my running in the race, I'm looking at racing lines because sometimes people run in races and they take the outside around corners. Yeah. That's more steps. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, in a race, it doesn't matter who's doing more steps. You just got to get to the finish line as fast as possible. Yeah. I'm always on the limit of the shortest amount of steps, the fastest line round. So you know what I mean? So I mean, less steps overall. It makes sense.
Well, if you do less steps, you'd go just as far, right?
And cycling, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for the racing line. It makes a huge difference. Yeah, people are like, oh, it's 2 seconds, Claire. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's like, if you're going on this course, having 2 seconds.
2 seconds 5 times is already 10.
Oh my God,
right?
that's heaps. To win a race, it could be the difference between 10 seconds and 20 seconds for you and the competitor in front. Yeah. And then you kind of like, well, I should have.
Yeah. Okay, that's the end of part 1 of our 2-part podcast with Claire Jedrek. In part 2, we'll delve more into her recent 70.3 accomplishments and also her transition into a more of a mentor role for local endurance athletes.